Hey guys, how's it going? Today I wanted to make a video on this car right here. This is my daily driver, a 2012 Chevrolet Sonic. You know, this is my daily driver, the car that gets me around while I got all the old cars that I tend to work on pulled apart. This is my reliable transportation. So I've had this car for about 4 years, bought it in 2016, it's 2020 now. And it's been a great car, and I'd like to kind of talk to y'all about why I recommend it. I bought this car when I was in college, and it's a perfect college car. Subcompact, easy to park. This thing gets 40 miles per gallon on the highway, believe it or not. It actually does. I've tested it. Probably about 30 in the city, 40 on the highway. But this is the model I would recommend. This is the hatchback, manual transmission, and the turbo charged engine, which is a 1.4 liter putting out 138 horsepower, and I believe it's also 138 pound-feet of torque. So let me pop the hood. You can tell it's been a reliable car. I can't remember how to get the hood open. There it is. So this is the 1.4 liter turbocharged. Runs good. You'd be surprised how much storage you can get out of one of these subcompacts if you fold the back seats down. Now, obviously those will fold up and you can fit, you know, about 4 people in here. But I've used this car for yard sailing. That's how I made some extra cash when I was in college, going around to yard sales, picking up stuff to flip on eBay. Air conditioning works great on it. No armrest for the passenger, just one for the driver. But when I bought this car, my daily driver before this one was a 2001 model Ford F-150 with the 5.4 liter V8. I remember that thing got terrible gas mileage. I was getting 10 or less miles per gallon on that thing. And then when I started getting 30 miles per gallon on this car, I thought, you know, I just made some money. But let's take this thing for a drive. So here's kind of a look of my view as a driver. So this one has the 6-speed manual. 5-speed manual was an option. You got hands-free calling, which works very well. I use that feature very often. You know, cruise control. Radio is Bluetooth. You know, that's how the hands-free calling works. Got your climate control. 3 cup holders. It's a very nice economy car. So let me get this camera mounted up on the windshield. Alrighty, let's go for a drive. Alright, let's take this thing. I'm gonna do a little bit of city driving, a little bit of highway driving, and I'm just gonna make a loop back here. Y'all kind of see what it's like to drive one of these things. The thing about having a 1.4 liter engine is that you don't have a lot of low end torque. This engine has the most power, at least it feels like it does, probably between 3,000 and 4,000 RPM. So when you drive this thing normally, you're gonna have it revved up a little bit, but that's how they design these things to perform. One of the things I noticed once I started driving classic cars a little bit more is there's a lot of throttle lag compared to a carburetor. But I imagine that just, you know, that lag is the computer telling the engine what to do. On a carburetor, you can just, you know, pump the gas and the engine responds. On this car, if you hit the gas like that, you don't even see the RPMs change. Also on this car, I've noticed there's Rev Hang. If you got it up there around 5,000 or 4,000 RPM and you push the clutch in and you're letting the RPMs come down, it takes a little while. But that's just how the cars are. I've been really impressed with the adjustments in the seat. As you can tell, I'm a pretty big guy and I fit in here fine. I'm about 5'10", so I'm not all that tall, but as you can see, I got plenty of headroom up here. If I was 6 foot, you know, my head would be somewhere around here. Still got room. This car drives in the city great. It's a lot better than trying to drive a pickup truck or something and trying to park it in downtown traffic. It's also a perfectly fine road trip car. I've driven this, you know, 6+ hours in one day, and I wasn't too exhausted at the end of it. If you are a big guy like me and you're kind of looking at some of these cars, one thing to keep in mind is I've kind of worn out the seat foam on this thing. The seat, bottom of the seat has a little bit of a bolster, and I've kind of flattened that. But as far as, you know, pedal, you know, adjusting my seat to the pedals and getting the steering wheel where I want it and the gear shift, everything's comfortable. I don't have any gripes about the placement of anything. One of the modifications I've done to this vehicle is I added a trailer hitch that bolts onto the frame in the back, and that's handy for like bike carriers. And I even pulled a little utility trailer one time. I didn't haul anything super heavy. It was one of those lightweight $500 trailers that you can pick up at Lowe's or Northern. And I only had a few things on it, but it pulled it fine. And I had the trailer wiring wired up. There's kits for this car that are pretty easy to install. But that just kind of helps it be more practical of a vehicle. If you don't have a truck in addition to this vehicle, you can pull a little trailer. I did that for a little while before I got my truck. the fact that it's a manual transmission, you know, means you don't have to add any transmission coolers like you would for an automatic, because you don't want to burn up your transmission if you have an automatic and pull something you shouldn't be pulling. But a manual, you don't have to worry about that. I've never driven an automatic version of this vehicle, but I just imagine that the manual is more fun to drive when you're talking about a little hatchback like this. I don't know the 0 to 60 on this, but I doubt it's fast. But it's not underpowered either. I mean, it's a low horsepower engine, but it's also a lightweight vehicle, so it balances out just fine. And this thing handles in corners really well, so I'm getting on the on-ramp right now. Going 73 miles an hour in 6th gear. I'm doing about 2100 RPMs. Going 80, I'm usually going 2300 RPMs. And this is about the level of road noise you would get in something like this. My complaints for this vehicle, I would say, is probably the amount of information you have on the gauge cluster. You don't have a temperature gauge, you just have a bunch of idiot lights, about 12 idiot lights. Probably more than that, honestly, but I would like to have a temperature gauge. I have had problems with this thing overheating in the past. This thing tends to like to spring coolant leaks, so you got to keep an eye on it. And sometimes the computer won't tell you. You'll just be cruising, and your air conditioner cuts out because the engine's getting warm. But if the engine's not getting hot enough to where it's throwing a check engine light, you'll just be like, what's going on with my air conditioner? I had that problem. I had to replace well, throughout the 4 years I've owned it, I've had to repair the cooling system multiple times. One time it was a hose, one time it was the overflow reservoir had cracked, another time it was the water outlet that bolts to the block, or the head, I think. But the one that really made me pull my hair out was the thermostat, because there was no check engine light codes and nothing to tell me it needed a thermostat. My air conditioner would cut out periodically, but it wouldn't ever the engine would never obviously get too hot. So what was happening is the engine was getting warm enough for the computer to tell the air conditioner to cut off to conserve power. But I didn't know if it was that or some sensor from my air conditioner. But I replaced the thermostat myself. Wasn't that difficult of a job. And now the AC and the heat works great. See, I didn't realize that my heat was also not working until, you know, fall came around and I started using the heat a little bit. But right now the car's climate control is working perfectly, and it's not overheating or nothing like that. I read some forums online that people would take their car to the dealership having the same issue I was having, and the dealer would just throw compressors at the problem and it wouldn't fix the problem. And people were spending bukus of money for an issue that was improperly diagnosed. And I don't know who to blame, because if you don't have a check engine light or a code, then the mechanic doesn't know what to do. They're not the ones driving the vehicle. But I'm just glad I didn't get I didn't have to replace a bunch of unnecessary things. So now I'm on kind of a back road. I think this is a 45 zone. And I've driven, I drove this car recently in the mountains, in the Blue Ridge Parkway in Tennessee. And I just think it's fun, probably, to drive any vehicle on that road. But having a stick shift, I think, adds to it a little bit. Overall, I've been really happy with this car. It's served me well. Can't complain. Haven't had anything major. Just a regular kind of maintenance, you know, having the brakes done. It served me well. When I bought this car, it was 4 years old. I bought it in 2016. This is a 2012 model. And I bought it for a little over $7,000. And it had, I think it had 75,000 miles on it when I bought it. I think that's right. And I think it's worth every penny. I mean, if you're going to buy one of these things, I would probably recommend buying a used one that's a few years old, because new, I think this car was like $18,000, and just 4 years later it's $7,000. That's a big depreciation. And I think now, you know, I paid over $7,000, but now this car is probably market value $4,000, $4,500, something like that. And this car still has plenty of life on it. So if you're looking for cheap, reliable transportation, emphasis on the cheap, because this thing gets great gas fuel economy, then I would definitely recommend one of these things. Especially if you're you know, you don't have kids, or you know, you don't need a whole lot of passenger room, because the people in the back seat of this thing aren't going to be comfortable for a road trip. That's not what this car was designed for. But the way I see it, this is, you know, a good city car, where if you only have 2 passengers, you got plenty of cargo space, and it's fun to drive for the money, and cheap to drive and maintain and own. And I've even been able to work on it myself. You know, there's some YouTube videos out there showing you how to do the basic maintenance on these things. So all in all, I definitely recommend it if you're trying to be thrifty, you know. So thanks for watching, guys, and if you think this was a fair review, you got something from this, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button for me. Helps the video with the YouTube algorithm and all. And consider subscribing. I got some mostly classic car content on my channel. I've got an old Ford Galaxy I'm fixing up right now. So have a blessed day, guys. I appreciate you watching.